Up next, a historic post office gets a new life. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Gail Street, and this is Paths to the Present. On October 20th, 2012, Rockville celebrated the opening of its new police department headquarters. It was a day to celebrate both the future and the past. That's because the 21st century police facility was created in a building rooted in the city's past. On today's show, we'll learn about the history of the Rockville Post Office and tour its new incarnation as a public safety building. But first, let's do the history quiz. Do you know the purpose of this artifact? This 6-inch tall kitchen tool dates to the early 20th century. A very particular item would be placed in this holder. A spring would allow this arm to move, revealing a weight. Think you know what was being measured? Stay tuned. I'll give you the answer at the end of the show. For many years, the Rockville City Police worked in overcrowded, insufficient offices located in the basement of the City Hall. At the same time, the future of the city's first permanent post office was in question. Then, in 2008, the two came together when the city acquired the post office property and began turning the building into the new home of the Rockville Police Department. That's the topic of our success story, the Rockville Post Office. Construction of this English Georgian-style building at the corner of Washington and Montgomery Streets began in 1938. Before that, there was no permanent post office in town. Mary Van Balgoy, head of Peerless Rockville, explains.
Postal Service had been coming here to Rockville since 1794. At this particular time, it's called Montgomery Courthouse, named the county seat in 1776. Mail service started in 1794. And then along the way, the federal government would lease space along Main Street where they would have the post office.
By the mid-1930s, Rockville had grown to 1,500 residents. It was time for the city to have a permanent post office. Turns out the chosen location already had a history.
And this site housed the Montgomery County Sentinel newspaper offices. Matthew Fields had started the Montgomery County Sentinel in 1855, put out a weekly newspaper until he died in the late 19th century, and then his wife Rebecca Fields took over the business. And when she died in 1930, the family would eventually sell the newspaper to someone else, and the house and the office were essentially abandoned. So at that time, the federal government bought this piece of land for $35,000, and then they started to raise the buildings in November of 1938 and constructed this new building and finished it in July of 1939 for a cost of $42,000.
Remember, this was during the Great Depression. To stimulate the economy, the federal government constructed buildings. This post office was a public works administration project. Inside is some artwork that was also created under a federal government Make Work program.
This mural is of Sugarloaf Mountain. It was part of the WPA project. Judson Smith was hired to do this. He was an artist from New York. In a sense, when people saw it, it sparked controversy because Sugarloaf Mountain is not in Montgomery County. It's in Frederick County. However, we love it, and the people still love it today.
For only about 24 years, this was the city's sole post office. The large mail sorting room was always bustling. Thousands of letters and packages flowed through here daily en route to their destinations. But after World War II, there was a population boom, and a larger facility was needed. In the early 60s, a new central facility was constructed less than a mile away. While the old post office still offered some mail services, a variety of tenants also occupied the building. Its future was in jeopardy.
This building was placed on the local historic district in 1979 and then on the National Register of Historic Places in 1986. But still, what was going to happen to it? This was our beloved, cherished building. It had survived urban renewal. And so everybody was very, very much concerned about that. Well, we were so pleased when the city of Rockville was able to obtain this building and decided to use it as their new police station. And you can see what a wonderful job they've done in restoring it and bringing it back to life. And that's what historic preservation is all about. It's about bringing old buildings back to life. And I think that the city of Rockville and its police have done a wonderful job.
Terry Treshuk is the city's police chief. Turns out he had been eyeing this building for quite some time.
I've been here since 1989. We've tried several times to get a police department. We've been in very crowded quarters for a very long period of time. And every time I passed this building, as I was driving around or walking in town center, I always said, wow, wouldn't that be the best police department? Right in the center of town, in a really majestic looking building. And so I was just delighted when this happened.
It happened with a little luck and a lot of ingenuity. Architect Edward Masick is with the Annapolis-based firm Wheeler, Goodman & Masick. They were brought in early as the city began negotiations with the General Services Administration.
The GSA made it available to local governments once they decided to de-access the property, and the city had to make an application. Homeland Security uses were going to score very high on the application, and if they liked the application, they were willing to transfer the building for $1.
With the winning application, the next step was to figure out how to turn the old post office into a functioning police station.
The first thing was to make sure that we were able to accommodate on site every police department operation, and that led to not just utilizing this building, but also the construction of a larger annex immediately behind us on the remaining property. And that was the key to allowing us to accommodate the space needs.
The historic building was outfitted to house the administrative wing of the department.
Credit the agency.
The new 3-story annex houses the 24/7 day-to-day police operations. And through all of the planning, the historical nature of the site was considered.
The basic premise was the historic post office itself would remain intact, and the exterior would be altered only to the extent necessary to accommodate the contemporary needs of the building, such as adding an elevator for ADA access and fire stairs and things of that nature. The main lobby was considered to be equal in historical and architectural significance to the exterior. So this space was restored using historical photographs and some fragments of old drawings that we were able to come across provided by GSA, so that these features were returned to their original condition.
That includes these original post office boxes, the customer service windows, this beautiful terrazzo floor, the decorative lettering, and of course the 1940 WPA mural of Sugarloaf Mountain. Beyond the lobby, more liberal renovations were allowed. The original mail sorting room was big enough to divide into more usable spaces. Chief Treshuk showed us a few.
The area now is right outside the lobby area. And this is really the working area where people come, the citizens come in to get their dog licenses, their registrations, their permits, records and reports, our code licenses, because we handle code enforcement and landlord-tenant. But it's where I actually used to come to get your mail. This is an area that just really wasn't anything before. It was part of the warehouse style area. We made it into a conference room that can be used for our staff and by our community services officer when he has meetings with his neighborhood watch people. I think the nice thing about this is that it's an area where they had not had the windows fully exposed. And the architects came in and we put a half ceiling in and showed these 10, 12-foot windows that shine to the outside, which is really, really nice. Going into an area now that was actually constructed for us. It was just an open area upstairs, and they actually built this floor, and this is the administration section for the police department itself. Here we are on the top floor of the administration building, the post office, and this is for the police management administration section. I think the interesting thing to look at around here are the windows. And they're actually still functional, where you can open all the windows at the same time by these chains. And this was the way it was designed in the 30s, and they kept it as part of our overall design.
And of course, the new annex was built from scratch. It looks like a separate building, but it's not. Lieutenant Eric Over explains.
What you're seeing here is the tunnel that connects the operations building to the administrative building. We are leaving the administrative building, walking slightly downhill into the operations building. If you're outside the building, what you'll see is there's a concrete slab in a parking lot, and that's essentially where this tunnel runs underground and connects the two buildings. And basically makes it one functional facility with the access tunnel, which is rather unique for us.
The annex is where the specialized police functions are located. The communications center operates around the clock. There is dedicated office space for detectives and code enforcement. There are booking areas, holding cells, as well as locker rooms and the roll call room.
This is where the daily briefings occur with the sergeants and their officers. The sergeants would stand at the podium, provide any lookouts, provide information on wanted fugitives or crimes that might have occurred recently in the community. It is a formal setting. This is where the sergeants would actually inspect their troops, make sure they're ready for the road, make sure in their proper uniform, make any car assignments, and any specific assignments for the day.
The new Rockville Police Station was dedicated on October 20th, 2012. There was much to celebrate on that day.
We're looking forward to our future.
The city gained a new modern state-of-the-art police facility and a landmark that meant so much to so many was saved for generations to come.
On the dedication day, a friend of mine I've known for about 20 years here in Rockville came to see me, and we did a tour of the building like everyone did. And as we came into the lobby, he immediately went over to the bank of mailboxes and pointed out one mailbox and said, "This one was in my family since the late 1940s, and I always used to come here and pick up the family mail." So it was a great experience to see someone who, from the 1940s, over 60, 70 years ago, being able to remember something in this building. Many times, the thought is to raise it, knock it all down and start anew, but you really lose the flavor and the uniqueness of that individual building, so it makes it all worth it.
So let's see how you did with the history quiz. This 6-inch kitchen tool was used to weigh eggs. A single egg was placed in this holder, revealing its weight in ounces. A farm woman who raised chickens could use this egg scale to measure and sort her eggs for market. Well, that's it for this show. If you have comments for us or ideas for future shows, send an email to paths.present@verizon.net. Join us again next time when we follow more paths to the present. I'm Gail Street. Thanks for watching.